Hello from Farnborough. I'm going to be taking the BBJ1 over to Washington Dulles, and what I really want to focus on today is the new PMDG Universal Flight Tablet. So let me go ahead and unlock my track IR so I can start moving around the cockpit here. So here it is. It's really a nice product. For those of you who have not been monitoring the forums or reading the manuals, I started tinkering with it last night. I made a very quick overview video since when the tablet was released. It was very late here in the Eastern time zone of the United States. So I do want to use it in a full flight today, and just starting with the overview. So far I found it to be incredibly intuitive, very easy to understand. It's broken into two sections. You're gonna have your flight bag that you can connect to your SimBrief account. So those of you who haven't used Navigraph, I highly recommend it. It's really worth the subscription prices. I know I have the top end annual subscription. I've had it for a very long time. Navigraph is just one of those add-ons that just never disappoints, along the lines of PMDG and some of the very reputable scenery developers too. So yeah, definitely something that's really well worth it. So if I show you the electronic flight bag here, like I said, when you are linked to your Navigraph account, you're able to get your data from SimBrief, for example. So I went ahead and requested my data from SimBrief. I was able to get my flight plan all loaded up here. Here are my weather functions, where I can get the departure weather, the arrival weather, the alternate weather, and the alternate today is JFK. So I can do it during all phases of flight. My operational flight plan here, which I can scroll all the way down to the map graphics. Let me see. Yeah. So again, this is great. This is just great to have this right at your fingertips in the cockpit. There's no need to scroll for me to scroll back to my Windows, for example, my Windows browser to see all this data. Some other features here, for example, you see the blue aircraft icon, which is where I'm currently parked in Farnborough. We're going to be taxiing over to runway 24 for this flight. So you can put up all the charts you need for your arrivals. You can pin the charts you intend to use most part of the flight, or the flights you're going to mainly rely on if you want to pin them. The next phase here shows your settings. So like I said, on the first go around, if you have a SimBrief account, a Navigraph account, you'll see a QR code for you to be able to grant permission for the tablet to connect to your Navigraph account. So there's my SimBrief alias. You can choose your weather source from the simulator, from the real world. So I'm going to stick to the simulator right now. You can have an on-screen keyboard if you desire, so I'm just going to be using my regular keyboard. It's very close within reach here, so it's not too much of an inconvenience. And then your units. The only unit I'm going to be switching around for the most part is going to be kilos and pounds. So if I'm going to be flying US Airlines, I'm going to be using pounds. But when I'm flying carriers that are not based in the US, I'm going to be using kilos. But if for some reason you don't like something that happened here, you can always go do a factory reset that you can see here. So again, this is very easy to use. I'm not seeing a lot of complexities, and as Robert mentioned in the forum, this is going to be a work in progress. There's going to be more features being added. So we've taken a pretty big step here. In flying the 737, and this tablet will be universal. That's why it's called the Universal Flight Tablet. It'll be available for the 777, for the 747, and hopefully my personal wish list for PMDG is to get me the 2 newest Boeing aircraft that are currently flying, which is the MAX series and the 787 series, just to keep my flying as close to real times as possible. And I understand there's also some retro fans who wouldn't mind having a 727 to fly around. I loved that plane when I was a kid, but hopefully we'll see a more robust operation in PNDG. Robert mentioned in previous posts that they're gonna be able to have faster product development without sacrificing any quality, because as a 20-year PMDG user, I've been using the NG series of the 737 under PMDG for 20 years now. I mean, time has really flown. And one of the great things about PMDG is that, like, every time they release something, it works. Even if there's a few bugs, it works and fully flyable. It just never disappoints. So, okay, we're going here to cross the pond over to the US. I went ahead and already calculated my takeoff data. One of the things, you can import your aircraft weights from the OFP, which is going to be pretty much the recommended way to fly the operational flight plan, just based on this current Boeing BBJ1 profile that I need to cross the pond from London to Washington. But you can also import that from the aircraft. One thing I haven't noticed yet is how I could send my flight plan from the tablet over to my FMC. So I just went ahead and imported the flight plan from the safe flight plans that SimBrief sends over to my flight simulator folders. So and again, no big deal. I know this tablet's a work in progress, so there'll be more options. I used these recommendations for optimum takeoff, optimum ratings to get them over to my FMC here. So these are all gonna match pretty much. Okay, so we'll go over some of the flows here to get going. And like I said, I need to go to work, so you know, a lot of you can probably relate to this. During a very long flight, you hope your VNAV and your LNAV work perfectly the whole flight, because you're not going to be here to monitor the flight. But when I do these long hauls, I enjoy just being very involved in the takeoff part, takeoff and departure part, and then the arrival landing segments. So with our pre-flight checklist here, the oxygen is tested at 100%. Navigation, transfer and display switches are normal auto. Window heat is on. Pressurization mode selector is auto. Flight instruments initial heading will be 242. Current altimeter is 09906. I'm gonna go ahead and set the parking brake. And I'm gonna also start the APU. And checking that our starters are on cutoff. So pre-flight checklist is complete. Before start, flight deck door is closed and locked. Fuel pumps are on. Passenger signs are on. Windows are locked. MCP. V2 is 153 knots. Heading is 242 degrees. Our initial cruise will be flight level 340. I don't see any speed restrictions on the FMC legs, and I don't plan to do any altitude holds, and that's what I meant to say. I don't see any altitude restrictions on my FMC, and I kind of go out in the real world, so I normally like to do a continuous climb and a continuous descent, unless there are altitude restrictions in the flight plan, which there are none today. So we'll just go straight to 340. Okay, takeoff speeds. I've already transferred them over or copied them over from the tablet to the FMC. So V1 is 134, V-rotate is 145, V2 is 153. CDU preflight is completed, rotor aileron trim is free and 0. Taxi and takeoff briefing is completed, and the anti-collision light is on. So we'll get our engine started. We're gonna go with number 2 first. Number 1. And you'll see the the co-pilot's first officer's EFB or tablet is independent of mine. So if you like to fly on the right seat, you'll be having the same functionality here. It's independent of the captain's EFB. Okay, while my engine spools up, I'll just do a quick controls check. Fully back, fully forward, fully left, fully right, rotor. Okay, we got good controls. Before taxi, generators on. Propede on, anti-ice off, isolation valve set to auto. We got our pack spec on. Engine start switches set to continuous. Recall checked. Auto brake is on RTO. Levers idle detent. Flight controls have been checked, and with the exception of this pesky default tug, our ground equipment is clear. So brake release, and we'll start taxiing over to runway 24. And one of the nice features on the flight tablet is to have our moving map display. So I'm just going to focus here on the airport and make our way over to runway 24. One thing I do want to see, maybe be able to use the mouse wheel to zoom in and out. Right now you have to use the plus and the minus here on the map, and I tend to just unconsciously start scrolling my mouse wheel up and down for the zooming. But I'm sure there'll be a feature on the tablet. Okay, so let's get going. before takeoff checklist, flaps 1, and trim is 6.81 units. So before takeoff checklist complete. Okay, so we got our lights on, strobe and steady for lights, weather radar, TCAS, one of the things I also wanted to point out, you get this visual depiction of the runway that includes the offset. So 2,095 feet offset, and then the main runway 5871. So this gives us a total amount of room to be able to take off optimally with flaps 1. Because I do have a relatively heavy aircraft since we are crossing the pond. So I think we're all set here, so I'm gonna also turn on the elapsed time. Just I wanna time takeoff to touchdown. Alright, all set, so taking off. Stable, toga. Check.
V1. Rotate. Positive rate of climb.
Gear up. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and follow this initial 3,000 foot restriction. And we're gonna get our flaps up. Okay, it took a little bit of a while for the VNAV to catch up there to the restrictions, so that's why we had a bit of a dip there. Okay, so we'll be 3,000 feet for the next 3.5 miles, and then we'll continue our climb. After takeoff checklist, engine bleeds on, packs, auto, landing gear up and off, flats up, no lights. After takeoff checklist complete, and I think we cleared our restriction, so let me see if the plane starts climbing on its own. Yeah, okay. So now we're going to be climbing over to 340. I noted there were no speed restrictions, but I guess there was one at 3,000, so that's why I passed it unintentionally. But I have to remember that when I'm in, especially here in London, I've taken off from Biggin Hill, from Farnborough, Heathrow, Gatwick. There does tend to be a few altitude restrictions during departure, so I just gotta remember those. Today I'm so focused on the flight bag that I forgot that. So we can get out of our performance data here on the flight bag, on the tablet, and just get back to our map. So for example, here's a moving map. You have an option of going to Google to get their display from based on Google Maps, or just Navigraph maps. And I'm currently in night mode, but somebody can correct me. If I switch to day mode, it's appearing dark. So I thought it was supposed to appear dark during night mode. So maybe this is swapped incorrectly, the display, or maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. But for me, a day mode should look like what night mode looks like here. So if it's a mistake, I'm sure they can fix it. Another map option is you can have this regular world map that I was swapping between Navigraph and Google, but you can also have your IFR map. And if you go to Google here, you'll go back to that map. So that's why it's important here to use your Navigraph if you want to see the actual charts. And there's IFR low. And there's also this VFR map, which is very detailed, especially for those of you who like flying the small, slow planes. So yeah, this is very, very nice to have all these different map options. So I'm gonna continue to zoom out here. I also need to see if there's an aircraft orientation, because right now I'm just north oriented. So I'm wondering if there's could be one where I can see the aircraft track. But regardless, I really enjoying having this tablet. It's just making a lot of the work so much easier. I got a speed warning for the descent phase. Let me see what I need to correct there. Okay, so it wants a lower speed, I suppose. I don't have to worry about that till descent, but I'll go ahead and fix it now so I get rid of that warning. Okay, so it's currently 13:56 Zulu. I'm expecting to touch down at 21:57 Zulu. 8-hour flight, so I'm assuming lots of headwinds over the Atlantic, especially as we get closer to winter time. And let's see. I'm gonna go ahead and request those winds again. I'm just curious to see how strong the winds are. I could have sworn I already requested my winds, but maybe I forgot. Let's see. Okay, let's load our winds here. Alright, so initially the winds are to the southwest. Let's see as we get higher what happens. Okay, I see. Yeah, once we get over the Atlantic, we're gonna have 143, 133, 116. We're gonna have some pretty strong headwinds, so that completely makes sense as to why it's gonna take us 8 hours to get to DC today. And like I mentioned, I'm off to work, and we'll come back and resume the video during descent. If I get back a little earlier, I'll resume the video before descent so we can just check out some of these moving map options en route, and also regardless I'll be able to provide the landing data calculation from the tablet and transfer it over to the FMC. Again, I mentioned in many of my videos that I've been looking forward to very accurate takeoff and landing data, and I think we got there. So we'll resume the video once we are descending into Washington DC. See you then. So good evening from the Northeast United States. As you can see from our wind information, we've had one heck of a headwind throughout most of the flight. We have been airborne for 8 hours 14 minutes. We are about 20 nautical miles, well, less than 20 nautical miles from the top of the descent, so we're going to start using the tablet to get some of our landing data. And I also had the moving map turned on. I mentioned earlier that I was wondering why night mode and day mode seem to be switched, but I figured it out. It's basically if you click on the moon, you go into night mode, so then it's a dark map. And then if you click on the, I thought this was a settings icon, but it's actually a sun. So now it makes sense. So I click on the sun, and here's my day map. So that's a lot clearer now. Since we're pushing nighttime, I'm going to go ahead and leave the map dark. And I'm going to go back to performances. I'm going to once again get my landing data from the aircraft. It shouldn't change too much if I try to import aircraft details here. Okay, it's a little lighter now, so we have a very long runway, and we're going to be at the end of the runway in the general aviation area. So I'm going to go ahead and put auto brake 2. Get the latest weather for DC, for Dulles. And now we're going to calculate what we can get here. Okay. So we're only going to need about 6,000 feet of distance on landing roll, and it'll still leave us plenty of runway. So you know what? Let's go with auto brake 1. Again, the parking area for all the private aviation in Dulles Airport is on the, it would be on the western end of runway 1, right? So we're gonna go ahead and switch that to 1 and calculate again. Yeah, so we have a fairly light aircraft. We're flying a business jet, so lots of range. So it won't require a lot of braking. And our descent has started, so we're gonna be working on that. We already entered our landing altitude for Dulles. I'm gonna do a recall check here. Okay, that's good. We're gonna set our auto brake to 1. And let's get our landing data. Unless I'm wrong, there is no way to send this to the FMC yet. I know this is a work in progress, like I mentioned. I've been reading a lot of excuse me, a lot of forums today, social media, on the tablet release, and as usual, there's people who you're never going to please. Lots of complaints. They don't seem to have read the post that this is gonna be incorporating more and more features with time. But I mean, right now, I think most of us are happy with this. But again, it's just hard to please everybody. Okay, so let me go ahead. We have a recommended VREF of 135 here, and let me see how it compares here. Yep, it's gonna be the same thing, because my VREF is 130, but when you consider the correction, it's gonna be 135. So we're gonna do 30, 135. And we'll get that ILS information also. So we're gonna be at 11 degrees, 011 degrees. And the frequency 110.10. Right, let me go to the radio stack here. Okay. And one more weather forecast here, 2988 on the altimeter. To switch back to US units here, 2988. Okay, and we'll switch that over once we pass 18,000 feet. So our descent's pretty much in progress. Currently 164 nautical miles from Dulles. And I can also go ahead and expand the map. Just want to check the weather forecast here one more time that it matches. Okay, yeah, that's a real life weather forecast. I mentioned earlier you can have a simpler mode if that's what you're looking for. I'm actually in the Washington DC area right now, and we are in the middle of a cold front. It was a pretty warm day today, but it's gonna get significantly cooler between now and sunrise. So the wind's been very gusty from the northwest. Okay, and I was saying you can actually expand the map and continue to work with the different styles of maps there are available. This is the Google version. Oh no, I'm sorry. So I'm trying to remember if it's just like this icon here. If I touch the sun, we go to day mode. If I touch the moon, we go to night mode. So if I touch the G, do we go to Google? This is a Google map. And if I touch the Navigraph, we're on a Navigraph map. I think that's how the logic is. And I had this map of Dulles open just to reiterate what I was mentioning. We are landing on runway 1 right. We're gonna have plenty of room, so I don't intend to use a lot of braking. I'm just gonna let the aircraft slow down on its own. We should be able to exit on K2. I'm gonna assume, you know, this is a major United Airlines hub. There's gonna be a lot of traffic flowing into Dulles. I could just let my plane roll all the way to Kilo 1. But I think just as a courtesy to all the traffic behind me, even if it's not depicted, I would exit at Kilo 2 and we'll be taxiing over to this part of the airport. Being a resident of this area, that part of the airport's always full of general aviation, especially when you're dealing with a country's capital like Washington. When dignitaries come from abroad, it's very common to see government VIP planes also parked here. So, and there's a very nice spotting position from the parking garages. If you go to the top of the parking garages, you can see this area very well, as well as the takeoffs and landings. Okay, so that's Dulles. And again, once we land, we can use this as a moving map. And those are the settings I mentioned earlier when we were getting the flight started. So back to the home page here. It might take me a little while to figure out what map's going to be my favorite here. I like this VFR map a lot. If I switch to the world map, it's not as noisy as a VFR map. The VFR map has a lot of information. And obviously the IFR and IFR high and IFR low, very standard maps. But I really like this VFR one. It's very, very colorful. But just to declutter, I'm just gonna leave it on world for now. The design checklist is complete, and I'll complete the approach checklist. I already went over how we're going to land on runway 1 right, but I'm going to get the latest altimeter when we're closer to the airport. And I don't rely too much on the default ATC, but if we have visual conditions below this cloud deck, I might just dial them in to see what altimeter they have. Okay, below 180, standard altimeter. I mentioned during departure how the first officer's flight bag is independent of mine. So same functions. I actually wanted to go into this darker mode because it was a little bit too bright when I was looking here to the side. And over there are the 3 north-south runways in Dulles. And there is a northwest runway for departures also. And it'll be a southeast landing runway, just depending on weather conditions. It definitely helps with the traffic flow, just to optimize it more. In the 8.5 hours plus since we took off, one of the things that did disappear was the FS traffic, but that's fine. I mean, I can try restarting it if I want. But FS traffic is also a bit of a work in progress. They are supposed to have some updates to it. So I can try to regenerate traffic once I confirm my destination. But if it doesn't come up, that's fine. If anything, if there's no traffic ahead of me, I might just cut this very long U-turn I'm going to be making into shorter segments. I'm about 20 miles southeast of Dulles, so the visibility from my house is a lot better than it is here. So again, the storm is moving from west to east, so Dulles is starting to feel the brunt of the cold front, and in a few minutes I'll start feeling it as well. For those of you who have followed a lot of our Robert Randazzo's adventures, he's the CEO of PMDG, of course. This is where he bases his DC-3. I think he sold it, but he did a cross the pond DC-3 flight a few years ago during the celebrations of the Normandy invasion. I think that was the event that they were marking, so that was really cool. He has some videos of the flight. Again, on a pristine DC-3, that's amazing. So here in Manassas Regional Airport is where he parks it. And if Rob watches this, he can correct me if I'm wrong. Okay, so like I mentioned, since there seems to be no traffic, I am going to start my U-turn now, just to trim back some of the time. So let me see some of the suggested altitudes here. So maximum is 1900. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and switch to that one, 1900 feet. So I'll start descending. Get this down to 180 to slow down. 170 even better. 170. I'll do a level change and then I'll tune in to Whiskey Alpha X-Ray India November. Flaps 1.
Dulles Tower, Boeing November 839er Bravo Alpha is 13 miles south, 2,700 feet, with Charlie to land.
Boeing November 839er Bravo, Alpha Dulles Tower. Altimeter 29.88, wind speed
Flaps 5.
4 at 14. Fly straight in runway 1 right.
Fly straight in runway 1 right, Boeing November 839er Bravo Alpha.
I actually like a lot of the data the heads-up guidance display provides, but also if I have this, I mean, it's not crispy clear visual, but I should be able to hand fly the aircraft once I have the runway in sight. And I like to get as much hands-on practice as possible. And again, I understand the technological advancement and all the advantages that an HGS can provide, but again, if there's good visibility or decent visibility, I would just rather keep the screen up and use my own senses to get us down to the ground. So I can confirm altimeter is 2988 for approach, so the next phase will be landing checklist, and I'll start it a bit early since I have no autopilot with me. So we'll put continuous start switches, we'll arm the air brakes, the spoilers. I'm gonna lower the gear here as we line up with the runway. Let's see if there's a runway in sight yet. Yeah, there it is. Okay, so I'll disengage the autopilot here pretty soon. And just to remember my VREF, it was 135. Yep, 135. So that's gonna be our final speed, our final approach speed, that is. And I am also going to switch to my Dulles map here. Yeah, I'm using my mouse wheel to try to zoom in and out, but it's not enabled. So hopefully that'll be a feature for future updates.
Boeing November 839er Bravo Alpha wind tree 51 at 10. Clear to land runway 1 right.
Okay, I have control. Gear down. Down to 135.
Boeing November 839er Bravo Alpha, please acknowledge.
Clear to land runway 1 right, Boeing November 839er Bravo Alpha.
Okay, the winds seem to have calmed down a bit. They were really gusty when I was about an hour and a half away from Dulles. So 1000, stable, continuing. Flaps 25. Flaps 30.
500. Glide slow. Glide slow. Glide slow. $100. 50. 40. 30. 20. 10.
Okay, speed brake up. Idle reverse. Manual braking. Well, like I said, that landing calculation was spot on. We really didn't need that much braking to slow down, so I didn't apply spoilers. I mean, I didn't apply reverse thrust. Kept the auto brake on 1, and I said I wanted to exit on kilo 2, just coming up on us. And I'm gonna pretend there's traffic behind me, so I'm gonna go ahead and exit now.
November 839er Bravo Alpha, turn next taxiway.
Either way, I still have to taxi to the end of the runway to get to the general aviation area.
On 129er, decimal 55.
Alright, going to ground.
129er decimal 55 Boeing November 839er Bravo Alpha.
And we're cleaning up. Okay to clean up. Got our lights off. This dollar scenery is made by Flightbeam, and those of you who are hardcore simmers, you know, Flightbeam published, surprisingly, Minneapolis last week, and they're about to, or soon will publish San Francisco. One of my favorite developers. They always do a fantastic job. And since my traffic is not working today, my AI traffic was not working today, I also got Latin VFR's static aircraft, so it's going to give you static general and commercial aviation aircraft at various airports. So I think once we get to the business ramp, we should be able to see some static business jets. I mentioned I know this airport really well, but let me make sure I know where I am. Yeah, I should be able to turn here, next taxiway, or this taxiway, to get into the general aviation area. But I just don't want to get overconfident that I know where to make the turn. A little bit of thrust here. Okay. Now it's just a matter of deciding where I can fit this 737, which shouldn't be a problem. I mentioned it's very common for government transports to be here. The largest government transport I've seen here is probably the 747-8 that belongs to the South Korean government. I've also seen the German Air Force A330 that the German Chancellor uses when they've come here to Washington. So here we have a signature ramp. Yeah, let's park at signature. That's fine. Let me see if there's any actual parking spots here. And there is more parking up there, so I know what I'm going to do. I'm just going to park parallel to the building here. In my channel, I have a video of a jump seat ride I got to do on a 737 BBJ1 landing in Miami, and we also parked at Signature Aviation. That was one of the most enjoyable aviation experiences of my life, getting to see the crew operate the runway 26 right localizer approach in Miami. So let's set our brakes here, and should have started my APU a little earlier, but let's see. Well, let's get some ground power on. I'm not going to worry about the APU right now. So we'll get our chocks on. Get our ground power connected and shut down. And we'll get some ground equipment here for our VIPs. We can use our own air stair, I suppose. Or just regular stairs. We use our own air stair. We are right next to Signature Aviation, so I'm not going to request any SUVs for our VIPs. And I actually think we're the VIPs. We're the ones who are flying this plane. So let's see. Air stairs. Yeah, we'll leave it there. Gonna leave a route for the next crew, even though Arnie's probably gonna perform a full shutdown here. Alright, so I'm gonna reset the checklist for the next crew. And let's do some shutdown flows here. We're gonna get our window heat off, probes off. We're gonna set the hydraulics. Turn off this. Let's see. Okay, so emergency exit lights are off. We'll also get our IRS off since it was a very long flight, so it's going to be a good idea to reset them, realign them. One thing I'm looking forward to is being able to pull up my QRH, which includes the checklist here from the EFB. And I know, if I understand correctly, I asked a forum question about that because during my P3D flying of the NGXU, I was able to upload or just pull up any PDF file, whether it's PMDG related or non-PMDG related, from my tablet, from my EFB. But from what I understand, there is a copyright issue right now with that I'm sure PMDG, Asobo, Adobe, if that's the case, will have to figure out how to just clear the path for us to be able to pull up PDF files. So I'm pulling my checklist from my iPad, actually, which my iPad had been serving as my electronic flight bag until yesterday. So we shut down checklist. We got the fuel pumps off, the probe heat's off, hydraulic panel is set, flaps are up. We got chocks so we can turn the parking brake off. We got cut off on the levers. I turned off the weather radar, so shutdown checklist is complete. And we'll do our secure. IRS off, emergency exit lights off, window heat off. I'll go ahead and turn the packs off now. It's a cold night, and I don't think I even need to hook up the AC unit. We're gonna assume this plane's gonna sleep here in Dulles tonight and go somewhere else tomorrow. So just let me get the wiper off, and we are done. I can also reset my timer here. So it took us about 8:50 to get here, 8 hours 50 minutes. Again, it was a very, very strong headwind from the moment we left Ireland. So that's why pond crossings are so drastically different, eastbound fast and westbound usually slow, especially during the winter months. So I definitely enjoyed this first phase of the flight bag, of the virtual flight tablet, or universal flight tablet. I keep forgetting its official name, but I really, again, I was laughing at all the trolling going on some social media. People just can never be happy with what PMDG does, even though I've been a customer 20 years. I bought my first 737NG from them 20 years ago, and I've been a very loyal customer since then. And my argument is that PMDG always pushes out usable products. They might have bugs, but they're very noticeable. I've always been able to fly my 737s, my 747, 777, MD11, DC6. I've been able to fly them from initial release, and they gradually push the updates to make them even better. That's going to happen with the flight bag. So yeah, read up on the post on the official site. Robert was obviously very generous enough to mention who the folks in his team are who are actually doing the main brunt of the work for the tablet. So it's a great team. Unless somebody can convince me there's better options for replicating Boeing aircraft, I'm gonna stick to PMG for a very long time. I'm very happy with what they're doing. And Robert has also talked about being able to streamline things to, as I mentioned earlier, to get faster product development without sacrificing any quality. And I think they'll get there. The team's scattered all over the world, and it's a great operation. Okay, so as always, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you on our next flight.